find that something isn't working, then it's time to try something different. I realized this, so I made a change.
Oh my god.
For you.
I think they're gonna rip it.
Hot shot.
Nice shot.
Gun here.
Who else? Show me a target. Breaking them.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining. Spike down, C.
Just as my playlist
Low
ends.
4K?
Reloading. Spike spot.
Hope you all are doing well. My name is Tristan, and I'm a hard-stuck, low elo player who's documenting his Valorant improvement journey with the goal of reaching Diamond. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the first 2 episodes so you can be all caught up. I feel like I rushed through making episode 2, so I want to expand on the points I talked about, and I'm going to talk more about how this whole process is going. Okay, so originally, I picked Skye to one trick because she's a super versatile agent, and I figured that Initiator would be a good role for me to play because I like the shot call, I calm a lot, and I'm pretty easy to get along with. However, I was performing really poorly on her, so I asked my friend if he could watch my game and give me some tips. He did, and he found that my biggest issues were not looking at the minimap and not using utility with intention. I started focusing on these things, and I started winning a lot more games on Skye. However, this was mostly due to the value that my utility was getting, because I was getting very little kills in these games. At first, this seemed good, and it's definitely not a bad thing. However, I quickly realized that if I wanted to climb quickly and consistently, this was not a sustainable strategy. You see, focusing on getting value out of your utility is definitely a good thing, don't get me wrong. However, there are 2 major issues with this approach. The first is that you are choosing to be a supporting player, meaning that you are relying on your teammates to make crucial plays off of your utility. This means that you are putting the game in the hands of people you have no control over, which is a guarantee for frustration and inconsistency. Also, even if you use your utility perfectly, in low elo, most people are not going to play off of it properly, and 90% of the time, you will just end up flashing your teammates or just completely wasting your util because your teammates are just going to do their own thing. The second issue with this approach is that you are going to spend too much time, energy, and focus trying to figure out how to use your abilities properly. That is time, energy, and focus that is taken away from learning how to win gunfights, which is arguably the most important skill that you must learn in this game, because winning more gunfights equals winning more rounds equals winning more games. Once I understood this, I realized that I needed to adapt, and that my original plan was not going to lead me to my goal. I think that one of the key parts of the improvement process is realizing when your plan is simply not going to work, accepting that, and trying to figure out a new plan. If any of you play TFT, it's just like in TFT where you have to pivot. I know you probably don't do that, and you probably just hard force the same comp every game. Don't worry, I do that too, but the concept is the same. If it's not working, you gotta try something else. If the game isn't giving you the units you need, or if 3 other people are holding all your units, it's just not gonna work out. You can continue to force the comp all you want and go 8th, or you can choose to pivot to something that no one else is playing, and you can likely salvage a top 4. You see, I think the reason why people struggle to progress, myself included, is because for some reason, we think that if we keep banging our head against the wall, something will finally click. However, that is literally insanity. I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, but Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So yeah, given that I've been hard stuck for as long as I have been, I'm probably insane. It's just like how on Lotus, your team will decide to go A every single round, even though you guys just lost 5 rounds in a row going A. The 6th round will be the charm though, right? Right? Okay, so back to my new strategy. The first agent that came to mind was Reyna, because, well, she's the perfect killing machine and provides absolutely 0 unique utility to the team. After talking to my coach, he also suggested ISO and Clove as hard carry agents. I didn't realize it then, but I realize now that I had actually never played either of these agents before because I was scared of failing. I was afraid of underperforming on these quote-unquote OP agents because everyone else seemed to pop off on them, meaning if I couldn't, then clearly I was the problem. That would make me feel inferior and inadequate compared to these other people, and because I did not wish to feel that pain, my solution was to just avoid these agents. There are 2 major issues with this kind of thinking, and they are both massive roadblocks to trying to improve at anything. The first is that you cannot be comparing yourself to others. You are your own person with your own experiences, your own genetics, and your own perspective of the world. Just like you can't compare apples to oranges, you shouldn't compare yourself to someone else who you know nothing about. Remember, comparison is the thief of joy, and because there's always going to be someone who you see as better than you, there's always going to be someone to rob you of your joy if you compare yourself to them. So just don't. You can look up to people, be inspired by them, but don't measure your accomplishments against theirs. Measure your accomplishments against who you were last week, because that's the only person you should be trying to beat. The second issue is that you cannot be afraid of failure. You see, when you face those hyper-aggressive Jets and Reynas in your game who seem to be immune to fear and they just swing everything, those are the players that are going to rank up 10 times faster than you, simply because they aren't afraid. Are they going to win all those fights? Of course not. But by taking so many more fights than you per game, they quickly learn what works and what doesn't. Meanwhile, you play scared and let your teammates take all the fights, and so each game, you only get a third of the reps of the other players and you don't learn anything. Now, am I saying you should just run it down every game? Well, you probably shouldn't do that because you will probably tilt your teammates, which will inevitably lead to a loss. But you should definitely be taking more risks every game and trying things out. Otherwise, your rate of improvement will be very slow as you're going to be learning very little from each game. That's why Duelist is the best role to learn the game on, because due to the nature of the role and the utility you have, you will be put into so many different situations which will quickly accelerate your understanding of the game. Right, so I tried out Reyna, Clove, and ISO. I played decently on Reyna. I only played one game on Clove and I went 6-19 and had one of the worst games ever. This was actually depressing. And I played pretty good on ISO. I kept playing ISO and I was pretty consistent on him, so I chose him as my new main. This led to one final mental roadblock that I'm sure you guys have faced too. If I insta-log Duelist every game, my teammates are going to judge me. What you have to realize here is that it doesn't matter if they judge you. Who cares? It's your game, you're trying to make the most out of it, and you're trying to learn. You cannot let what other people think stop you from going in the direction you want to go. They don't know you, you will probably never meet them, and their opinion should mean nothing to you. It doesn't matter, and to be honest, in all the games I insta-locked ISO, I didn't get judged a single time. Also, if you frag out, most likely you will just get complimented throughout the game, but even if you don't, as long as you're doing your job and creating space for your team, nobody has any reason to get mad at you. It's everyone's job to get kills, not just you, and if your team is being toxic, just mute them. Don't let them get in your head and affect your gameplay. Once that happens, they have power over you, and you will tilt, which will cause you to play worse and improve much slower. Playing while tilted is probably the worst possible thing you can do while trying to improve, and I think it is the biggest reason why I have struggled to improve for so long. As I'm writing this, I'm realizing that 90% of what I'm talking about has nothing to do with in-game concepts, and I truly believe that if you start shifting your mindset and adopting these 3 principles, focus on being better than you were a week ago, and don't compare yourself to others. Take more risks, and don't be afraid to fail. Do what you need to do to reach your goal, and do not let other people's opinions and judgment affect you. Valorant, or anything else you're trying to improve at, will instantly become much easier and more fun. Anyways, my stats on ISO were good, but my win rate was awful. That's okay though, because the sample size was so small, and I was also brand new to the agent and still making silly mistakes. The important thing was that I was able to perform well on him for multiple games in a row, which wasn't the case for the other 2 agents. I will keep playing him and hopefully start to win more games. Now, I want to talk about some things I learned from the VOD review with my coach. One thing that was pretty funny was I learned that the Gecko Flash is actually only 20 HP, which means it's a one shot with any gun. This was actually pretty important for me to find out because there were several situations where I would see the flash and immediately start panic spraying because I thought it took multiple bullets. This is also how we first discovered my moving and shooting problem, which I'll talk about more later. Now, I know that I can just take my time, stop moving, shoot one accurate bullet, and then move on. This is something I could have easily looked up on Google and found out myself, but because I would always struggle to kill it, I just assumed that it took multiple bullets to kill, and so I never had any reason to figure out its actual amount of HP. Another small thing that I was shocked that I didn't know was that you don't actually have to press tab to see who has their ults up. If you look at the top where all the agent icons are, there's actually a yellow background on the agent icon if that agent has their ult up. I have no idea how I had never noticed this before, but please comment down below if you also didn't know so I don't feel alone. There were a couple of basic ISO mechanics that I didn't know, such as using shield before ulting and how the moving shield is supposed to be used. A lot of these things are really small, but that's perfect because that means it's really easy to fix them, and if you keep fixing one really small thing at a time, that starts to add up. Something else he recommended was to watch pro players playing your agent and study how they play them and how they use their abilities. Let's watch this clip of Demon 1 using the ISO ult and see how he plays it.
No,
I'll spawn, I ulted one.
could be in this smoke.
Okay, so basically what he is doing is he holds the edge of one of the walls, and if he doesn't see the enemy player, he knows they have to be on the other side of where he is looking. So when the walls go down, he is already ready to take a fight in that general vicinity. This works because of how the ISO ult is designed. Because of the fact that you have 2 walls and the enemy only has 1, you have a little bit more info than them and can eliminate more of the possibilities of where they could be, which gives you a slight advantage. Combining that with the fact that you should also be popping your shield beforehand means that if you play it correctly, you should be winning the majority of your fights in the ISO ult. In my game, I did not pop my shield or play the ult correctly, and I ended up losing 2 fights in the ult that easily could have been turned into kills if I had just known those small pieces of information. All the little things add up, and in the games that go to OT, or where you only lose by a few rounds, these little things can often be the difference maker. Okay, now the first major thing he found as a mistake was that I did not fully understand how the Valorant economy works, and I was not playing around it correctly. There were 4 rounds where I had a Sheriff instead of a Vandal, and I lost fights in those rounds that I easily would have won with a Vandal. That may not seem like that many rounds, but you need 13 rounds to win a game, and 4 is almost a third of that. If you could have increased your chances of winning those rounds by 50% just by clicking on a different option in the shop, that is actually insane. After watching some economy guides on YouTube and asking my coach some questions, here's the quick rundown of what I learned. On pistol round, you buy a pistol and some util, and what exactly you buy depends on what agent you are playing and personal preference. You can just watch some pros and see what they do. If you lose the pistol round, you go to an eco round, which means you want to just buy a classic and some util. The next round is a buy round, so you want to make sure that you can buy a rifle, full armor, and util, meaning on most agents, you will need around 4,300 to 4,400 credits. If you win pistol round, you full buy the next round, which means full armor and the most expensive guns you can buy. You need to buy full armor on this round because the enemies will have classics and a lot of util, so the full armor will help you survive all the chip damage. If you win this round, which you should, the next round is a bonus round. In this round, if you survive the last round, you want to keep whatever you have left. If you died in the last round, ask your teammates for their ghost or sheriff, or buy your own, and make sure you have enough to full buy in the next round. The next round is a buy round, which means you aim to have around 4,000 credits so that you could buy a rifle and full armor. If you lost the bonus, you would go to an eco instead. After this, the pattern is if you win a buy round, it goes to another buy round. If you lose a buy round, it goes to an eco round. And no matter whether you win or lose an eco round, it always goes to a buy round. For these eco rounds, just make sure that you will have at least 3,400 the next round so that you can buy a rifle and at least light armor. I'm just saying this because in the round 2 eco round, you will have no money, so you won't be able to buy a gun if you want to afford a full buy in the next round. But later on in the game, you will have more money, so you will be able to afford guns like Sheriff and Stinger. There are also some guidelines on how you want to be playing the eco and second buy round. On eco rounds, for defense, you want to either stack a site, rush them with your team, or just do some stupid play and sit in ratty corners. For attack, you want to take short range fights and take advantage of enemies who are alone and playing too aggressively. You can also use smokes to block off angles so you can close the distance and play to your gun's short range advantage. To counter this, on the second round buy round, you want to always play with a teammate. Always buy full armor unless you're buying the outlaw. Buy the outlaw because they won't have full armor, and buy mollies so you can clear out ratty corners. As I'm writing this, I'm realizing how broken the outlaw actually is. It is essentially a second round op, but you get 2 shots instead of 1. Oh, also a side note is that you should prioritize buying with your team over buying correctly. For me, learning all this is huge because now I have a much better understanding of how each of these rounds are supposed to be played out and how to maximize my chances of winning these rounds. Remember, in this game, winning rounds is everything, and all these small advantages will definitely add up. If you can average an extra 2 rounds per game, you're going to start winning so many more games. Alright, the next mistake that I was making was giving enemies 1v1s when we were up numbers instead of playing with my teammates. This was a mistake that I was aware of, but I think that because I was able to win a lot of those 1v1s, I didn't really see it as a big issue. I think this is mainly a minimap issue because if I looked at the minimap more, I would know where my teammates are and it would be much easier to play with them. I think I also just had this fear that if it was a 2v1 and I didn't know where the enemy was and then I moved to try to play with my teammate, they would shoot me while I was trying to get to my teammate. However, I'm realizing now that either way, that would be a 50-50 1v1, but the closer I am to being in line of sight of my teammate, the more likely we are to get the trade, and the same thing goes for if my teammate encounters the enemy first. If I just sit there though, then it's guaranteed to be a 50-50 with no trade possible. I think this should be a pretty easy fix for me though. The final and most important mistake that I need to fix is moving while shooting. Although my aim is decent, the timing of my strafes and shooting between them is a bit off, which is causing a lot of my shots to be inaccurate. This is a big problem that I definitely need to fix because it is causing me to lose easily winnable gunfights and whiff on util like Gecko blinds. Fix this, every day I will be doing this drill in the range where you practice bursting and moving, and then playing at least 2 to 3 DMs where I only focus on not moving while shooting. Okay, I think that's it for the update. That was a lot, but I really wanted to cover everything that I thought was important. I put a lot of effort into this script, so I hope you guys got a lot of value from what I was saying. If you have been enjoying this series, or you have some feedback or criticism for me, leave a comment and let me know. I really enjoy reading all your comments, and I will respond to every single one. Anyways, take care of yourselves, keep grinding, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.